I learned from my swag major about the chain of love, the idea that my mom is taking care of someone else and then she passed that on to her mother to take care of me. And that's a very common thing that happens for immigrants, especially if the mom is overseas. So much of my life, I would say, has been marked by migration. My name is Kiara. I'm a student at Smith College. I was born in the Philippines and now I live in New York. My parents were overseas workers. My mom was a nurse. She decided to go to the US because they wanted to have a better life for us.
How was it like being cared for by your grandma while your parents were away?
I felt like I was missing something, of course, but I never felt like I was neglected because my grandmother was such a lovely person. She anchored me to the Philippines. Without her, I would have just looked overseas like, where's my mom, where's my dad? But for her to be there, I didn't have to look for anything else.
Just talking to my mom recently, I realized I don't know a lot of things. She came over for a different reason. It was for an arranged marriage. My mom never talked to this guy. So she was like, yeah, I heard his voice on the day we got married. She wasn't forced into it, but I think her mom wanted her to get married and have kids.
Do you think that part of it is that he was American or he was in America?
Yeah. A part of it was you'll be happy if you go to the States. She studied law and language arts in Guangzhou. She wrote advertisements for law firms. But when she came here, she worked as a waitress.
So service work too.
Yeah. But the restaurant was seasonal work, and so she had to find other jobs.
It's a pretty big shift from studying something, I don't know if creative is the right word, but like so humanistic, and then to transition into service work. I feel like I would be disoriented in a way.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the passions that our mothers had that were forgoed for us to pursue our own things. My mom was a caregiver, but in some sense, my grandmother was also a caregiver for us, and she was unpaid. And part of that is familial work. We see that as natural. And she was ever compensated for her labor, except for the fact that we love her and we love her dearly. But at some point, these labors have to be accounted for too. If they're not, they'll remain invisible.
Like they're literally raising the future generation, but that's not seen as real work. It's just, that's what you're supposed to do. My mom basically raised 2 kids on her own and had multiple jobs because she wanted enough money to be able to divorce and leave our dad. The rest of her family was in China, and so she only really had my dad and me and my brother. She had to work basically 3 jobs, being a mom and then 2 other jobs. We're off in college learning studio art and swag and history and environmental science, and we get that choice.
Yeah, we do. Because of all the invisible labors that made us who we are.
Can you share about the floods that would happen in the Philippines?
In the Philippines, we have 2 weathers. It's either very hot or rainy. During the rainy seasons, we would get really intense flooding, water up to the waist or higher. To be honest, I had kind of the best childhood memories from the flooding. I remember my parents and I would move the furniture. I thought it was fun. I thought we had a big swimming pool. We lived in a 2-story house, but the second story is just a room. So that was our bedroom. And then when things would flood, we would just be confined into that one little room, and then we just huddle around and eat. I liked it, especially when my parents were there, when they weren't working overseas. That one time of us staying in one room, it felt like home. We also felt the devastation, of course. You see it in the news every day, and it's a mixed feeling. During floodings, our neighborhood would rally around each other and help each other. I remember we arrived back home from the airport, and the roads were flooded. Everything was flooded. And so we got stuck in a McDonald's because it was the only high elevation to be in. And my mom was frantic, and she's like, how can we go back to our house, our furniture, we haven't moved it or anything. And somehow she's so brave. She's able to make connections with other people. So she talked to a bunch of people, and she somehow found us 2 men who had a raft, a makeshift raft, a plastic tub or something. And they put us into little chairs and all of our luggage. And then they were just rafting us along the roads. And that's how we got back to our house. We have a word for the kind of solidarity that happened is bayanihan. Bayan, the root word is a village. So I think that it's such an intrinsic part of us to help each other during these moments. Even if it's destruction, I just have a lot of positive feelings about it. A lot of the things that you hear about the third world and climate destruction is bad. But also there are things that we're doing to survive that even if first world countries like the US doesn't help us, we can help ourselves. The only thing that we need really is for the US and the other first world countries out there to take responsibility for what they're doing. I like to think that us Filipinos have compassionate feelings for each other. It's the one thing that I was kind of shocked by in the US, the lack of neighborly feelings that other people have towards each other here. To me, in the Philippines, we never felt like we were just us. We were helped by everybody, and we helped other people as well.
Just a sense of community, mutual aid and all this, but they won't even say hi to their neighbor. And I don't think it's an American thing either. Like just this phenomenon of distrust and fear. If we don't see ourselves as neighbors in a community, then we can't do anything to change the government.
Yeah, and I don't even think that it's individual people's fault. It's more systemic. Maybe the way that roads are designed, maybe that we need more walkable cities. I think that it's hard to find connection with the way that the US works now, especially with so much division.
Yeah. The fact that we're in cars and are indoors a lot of the time.
Yeah, that hinders us from having a community.
For having empathy.